Dude, give me some more Night Sister Witches. Welcome to the Weekly Fix podcast, where we're just two friends talking about our passions within movies, TV shows, gaming, and comics. Thanks for checking out the podcast. We hope you like it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Weekly Fix. My name is Jacob, and joining me, as always, is my good friend Zane. We have a pretty fun episode this week for you guys, as we're going to be talking about some of the new movies coming out in July. We had a new movie actually hit the $1 billion mark, which is always very exciting, and we're going to be breaking down the latest episode of The Acolyte. Now, we are going to try to keep this episode a little shorter because Zane is a little bit under the weather, but he's actually under the weather for, I would say, a pretty good reason. Zane, how are you going, and would you like to give us a little update on why you're under the weather a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So today's a big mark for the year, for my life. Today was the last day of my cancer treatments, and I'm actually officially cancer-free as of 7 o'clock this morning, which is just an amazing feeling. Huge weight lifted off my shoulders, and just awesome that God allowed me to walk this journey, learn so many things, and then just also to grant the healing. However, the treatments have taken their toll, especially the radiation with my throat. So that, along with having COVID over the weekend, has not really been for the best for energy or throat health. So I apologize for my voice and also for potentially a short episode due to that. But I'm excited to be here. I'm excited that this journey has come to this stage and that we are over with the active treatments. And man, it just feels absolutely amazing to actually be done with that.
Yeah, I can't imagine the weight off your shoulders. I mean, it's got to be such an amazing feeling. It just goes to show like what a mighty God we serve, that he was able to get you through the treatments. Obviously I'm not the one that went through them and all that stuff, but all things considered, again, probably the best case scenario, especially with the amount of time you were able to get through it all. I know you probably couldn't be happier with, how it's gone.
Oh, absolutely. No, just every step, every stage, you could see God's hand was evident. Um, putting me exactly where I needed to be, giving me the signs to go get it checked out, putting it in a place where I was self-conscious enough to go get it checked out. Just every step of the way, God has been in it and working through it, and it's been a really, really good story. But even if he wouldn't have, right, even if it wouldn't have been as good of a diagnosis and not, it would have been worse for me, he's still good regardless of how this path goes. There's a lot of people who don't get the same grace, who don't get the same journey that I got. And regardless of what the situation looks like, God is good. But we are thankful, and I'm honored that he allowed me to walk it this way so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no matter what it would have been, I mean, we all deserve far, far worse than anything we could even possibly imagine. But I'm so thankful that, you were able to be blessed and taken care of in the way that you were. Again, guys, like you said, we're going to try to keep it shorter, but I feel like every time we do say we're going to try to keep an episode a little shorter, it ends up being one of our longest episodes. So we're going to try to be a little bit better about our time management this week. And I
That's
think
right.
let's start off with the newest movie hitting the $1 billion mark, and that is Inside Out 2. I always think it's super exciting when a movie hits $1 billion just because it's good for the industry. It's fantastic for animation, seeing an animated movie hit this threshold. After we heard about how fast it got off to the start, I'm not surprised in the slightest that it has gotten to this point, but it's super cool to see. Hopefully that's a little bit of a foreshadowing for a movie that we have coming up later this month with Deadpool and Wolverine. I know me and Zane, though, have not got a chance to see Inside Out 2, but Zane, did this surprise you any at all, or did you kind of see this one coming after those initial responses that we got from the movie?
Honestly, it is a surprise to me. Not that it hit the $1 billion after the opening weekend it had, but the fact that this is the movie that brought people to the theater. I didn't understand or didn't realize that Inside Out had such a huge cult following.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's clearly Pixar has a cult following. Um, but Inside Out is an amazing Pixar film, and I'm really glad. One of the best things about it for a sequel is that it lends itself well to a sequel. There's a clear path forward. There's a clear step in progression. A sequel makes sense. And so that's like a really, really good point. somebody posted on Twitter the other day, what Pixar movie should get a sequel next, and they were like Up or this or that, and those movies don't really lend themselves to sequels as well. Like they said, Coco, and Coco is absolutely fantastic, but a sequel doesn't really. It's not natural. But Inside Out 2 seems to be natural progression for like to get a sequel. So that after thinking about it and thinking how good the first one was, it shouldn't be surprising, but it did catch me by surprise.
Yeah, I think you made a good point there because this movie, like you said, does have a clear path forward, and it didn't feel like they were doing it just for the sake of making money. I mean, there was actually a story to be told there, which is anytime you do make a sequel, that should be the first and foremost thing that you go after is you want there to be a clear story to be told. You don't want it to be just something that you can kind of clearly see is a cash grab. I'm a huge Toy Story fan. It's one of my favorite franchises of all time. But you could definitely argue that a lot of those movies really kind of were just made for the sake of being popular, and they knew they were going to make money and stuff like that. That's not to say they aren't great movies or anything like that, but you definitely can tell that those were more so made not with a clear story in mind, more so just because they were so popular and people definitely wanted more. Whereas this one, it definitely made sense to continue the story, with her reaching an older age, learning more about herself, getting more emotions and reacting to things differently and understanding life. It all makes total sense as to why this movie got a sequel.
Oh, absolutely. And I've heard it has an absolutely incredible story, just like the first one, or incredible heart behind it, a meaning, just like the first one did. Emotions should be felt. It's not bad to sit in your feelings, to sit in your emotions, because they're what allow you to progress. Suppressing those don't actually allow you to grow. So that's really a good needed movie. So I am excited to go watch this one.
Yeah, I think it'll be a super good movie. Continuing on a little bit with some things that we have coming out this month, though, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the one I'm most excited for because it's the one I'm most familiar with. And I hate to make you talk a little bit, but maybe after this segment, you can let us know about some of the other things that are coming out. I know you're a little more familiar, and we have some other movies that have recently come out that are getting some really good reviews. But Deadpool and Wolverine is basically here. We are finally in the month of July. It is slated to release at the end of this month, basically. And I am so excited for this movie. I feel like it's even starting to pick up some more hype. Just in the world of gaming, taking it out of context of movies a little bit. It also just got leaked a little bit today that Call of Duty is going to be doing a Deadpool and Wolverine crossover, or a collaboration, as you will, inside of the game, which is super exciting for me as me being a big Call of Duty fan. And the fact that Call of Duty was able to partner with a property like Marvel is really exciting just because of other things that we could get from this. But it feels like things are really starting to fall into place, and we're really starting to build that hype level up again. And I'm super excited for this movie. Zane, I know you are. This is probably going to be the first movie that me and you get to go watch together. Hearing the Inside Out news, I know me and you have kind of been going back and forth about if we think this is going to be $1 billion movie. Do you feel like the hype is building up even more? Or do you feel like it's still been about where it was at before?
I think it's about where it's at before. It is a good sign for theaters, for cinema, that they're bringing out this much. I guess it would be funds on a summer blockbuster. It's really good to be bringing in this kind of revenue. So it does probably increase its chances to run the distance. But we got a clip. Did you see the clip released?
Yes. Are you talking about the Sabretooth clip?
The Sabretooth clip.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
man, a lot of people are saying that it looks bad, that the movie looks bad.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that?
See, I don't really. It's really hard to gauge stuff like that because a lot of people are going to be watching that in different ways. If you watch something like that on, let's say, X, for example, and you're not on a good Wi Fi source or something like that, I've noticed X is really, really bad for compressing video just so you can watch it, and it'll be in really bad quality, and certain things won't really focus correctly. And I watched it overall. I watched it on my computer. I watched it at my house on my Wi Fi. And I can kind of see the sentiments of some of that. I think most of that is just coming from the background setting of that scene. That scene is very kind of bland and basic, in my opinion. It looks like they're in some sort of desert and stuff like that. There's really not a whole lot going on. So I can kind of see where people are going with that, but I think that's more so based off just that setting and stuff like that. I do think this movie is going to look very good. One thing I was a little skeptical about is you did see whenever in that clip you see Deadpool pulling out the swords and stuff out of Wolverine screen. That did seem a little rough looking. And you would think at this point in the stage of the movie that that stuff would be really polished up. So I'm not really going to give it the excuse of it looking super clean or not being, fully ready, because I feel like the movie probably should be at this point. But I'm definitely not going to gauge what I think the movie looks like based off of, I think that clip was like a minute long. So I'm not really going to put too much stock into it. I can see some people's concerns, but me personally, I'm not concerned about it. Is I don't think it really looked that bad. I think a lot of that was just based off of the setting they were in.
Yeah, I kind of have mixed feelings about it. Early on, I think the first time we talked about the first trailer, I said I thought the blood looked bad when he's
Mm-hmm.
fighting the TVA agents. And I'm just a little worried it's not going to look real. Um, and that may be just kind of my bias towards some like of the Dune films and how good they look.
Yeah.
Um, and they've raised my expectation for what a movie should look like.
Well,
Um,
and it's also tough too because we just discussed my least favorite Marvel franchise or Marvel property not too long ago, Echo, and I think that was another show that we really felt like the blood was kind of just used for the sake of being there, kind of trying to use that M rating or that R rating. And I feel like this movie could suffer from something like that as well, which is I think probably one of my bigger concerns as far as that goes. I think we've discussed it a little bit about the language that they're using. Again, it does feel a little bit disingenuous, and it just kind of feels like, oh, we have this R rating, so we can kind of just throw it out there if we want to. I'm worried they're going to do that kind of same thing, not only with the language as we've already seen, but with the blood as well.
yeah, and I hope it looks good. I didn't necessarily think from that clip that I was like, man, this movie's gonna look like garbage.
Yeah.
But I did get the sentiment behind it. It just, the color palette, the setting, it did look a little bland. It does look like it's filmed on the volume. It does look, and for those of you who don't know, the volume is a LED screen platform where the background is LED instead of green screen. So everything kind of seems like it's compressed in place. Um, but it just I think it's going to look good. I just don't think it's going to look great. And I think I think there's some validity to some of those claims where, oh man, this movie just doesn't look like it's going to be like an epic, right? It doesn't look epic. It looks small.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. Like I said, I think it is still just so tough to gauge that off of this little minute clip that we saw because really, I know we've talked about, not really thinking the blood looked that great in other trailers. I do overall think that those other trailers did look very good. So again, I'm kind of leaning into the fact that I think that a lot of it had to do with the setting. Being in that desert stuff, trying to compare a desert setting to the Dune desert setting is really hard because Dune is just like a masterpiece of a movie. It feels like every grain of sand was perfectly placed in that movie. So, comparing stuff to that, it is kind of difficult. So I'm not going to put too much stock into it, but I do understand some of the concerns, like you have said, as well.
No. Yeah, not necessarily thinking it's going to look bad. Just I think it's worth talking about.
Yeah.
Definitely worth mentioning that as we gauge our expectations for what this movie is going to bring in dollar wise, we got to make sure that the movie's quality.
Mhm.
And I really hope we get quality.
I do too. I do. And I have faith that we're going to. I'm not too concerned about any of those things like that. I really do think we're going to be in for a real treat with this one. It definitely has not lessened my excitement. I think by the day I'm getting more and more excited. And you brought up that Wolverine was this month, Deadpool and Wolverine. I kind of forgot. It felt like so long ago we had talked about it, and I was like, oh, that movie's so far away, but we're finally there. So it's really exciting to finally have a Marvel movie kind of headlining a month. But that's not to say we don't have some other great stuff. And you mentioned a movie to me right before we got on here that is getting really great reviews that goes by the name of Long Legs. Again, I don't want to make you talk too much, but do you want to kind of talk about that and talk about some of the reviews you're seeing a little bit that people are really enjoying this movie?
Oh yeah, so this is just a crime horror thriller about an FBI agent that uncovers a serial killer, and during the investigation, there's a bunch of occult clues that she's got to solve to kind of try to end this killing spree. And it just seems like it's a really good, high quality film if you're into those. It's directed by Oz Perkins, which I haven't seen any of her stuff that I know of, but it really is getting really good reviews by critics and seems to be like if you are into the hunting down serial killers genre, if you like Zodiac, if you like some of those movies, you're
Yeah.
gonna love this. If it's along the line of Zodiac, I will also like this. Zodiac was an amazing film. Um, a must watch for anyone who likes serial killers or anything like that. But yeah, I think this one's gonna be really good. And then this weekend we have Despicable Me 4 coming out, which is competing with Inside Out 2, and I do not think it's going to get the Inside Out 2 treatment. I think it's going to get the Kung Fu Panda 4 treatment, um, where it does okay, but not great.
I think I could agree with you on the Despicable Me thing because it's one of those movies when Kung Fu Panda actually came out, I didn't even realize it had released. And then when you came on here and said Despicable Me 4 was coming out, it was again a movie I did not feel like I had seen much about. And stuff like that, we just got through the NBA playoffs. Usually you do see a lot of those animated movies and stuff being really advertised during those playoffs and stuff like that. And it's something I don't really remember seeing a whole lot of. And maybe that was just me not paying attention. But this one definitely feels like it's going to get more of that Kung Fu Panda treatment. And I love the comparison or bringing up Zodiac. I'm not a big fan of the horror crime stuff, but Zodiac is actually a movie that I really did enjoy myself as well. So if it is in that same vein, I think that could be a really good movie and a really fun movie as well. But it might be a little tough to stack up against Zodiac with the cast that one had because that was a pretty incredible cast for that movie.
Yeah, this one does not have the quality of cast that that one did. Not to say they're bad actors,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
not the A-list star-studded snack that it did have. Now this does have Nick Cage in it. Um,
Oh, oh,
so
we might be cooking,
So I
but
mean, I'm a sucker for Nick Cage. I do love some good Nicolas Cage. But I personally I will probably be watching this one when it comes to streaming.
Well, we were talking a little bit earlier about movies that actually deserve a sequel, and I don't care what anyone says. I think we do need another National Treasure, but we'll save that for another day. I think that is the main movie parts that we have to talk about with some upcoming stuff coming out. Obviously, there's some stuff we're probably missing, but those are kind of the headlines that we wanted to pick out for you. Zane always does a good job of keeping up to date with all those things. A much better job than I do, as I've kind of just been again continuing to pack and get ready for the move. I have found a little bit of time to watch some anime stuff that I've been interested in. I finally started my One Piece journey this past week, and I'm proud to say I'm 4
Oh
episodes in. So
my.
I have quite the journey to go on, but those 4 episodes were really good and really fun. So
Only
I think this will be a
996 to go.
no, over 1,000. I have over 1,000 episodes to go.
Oh
But it'll
my,
be a
that's
fun
crazy,
journey.
dude.
It might take me 4 or 5 years to get through it, but hey, it's something I can work on.
Now, have
However,
you
but
watched
something
the live action One Piece?
no, I have not. But I've heard a lot of people say that it's not a bad place to start if you just wanted to see if you even enjoy it.
Yeah. I've heard it did a good job.
Yeah. So, but one thing we don't have to work on for 4 or 5 years because we are currently getting releases of it every single Tuesday, and we were recording this, a day before the next episode of the Acolyte is revealed. And I got to say, guys, this show has continued to impress me. As you guys know, I've voiced my love for the show countless times. I'm really, really enjoying the journey it's taking us on. And I got to say, this most recent episode, which I guess was episode 5, if I'm not mistaken,
Yep, episode
um,
5.
was an absolute blast. I thought this was an episode that we were really hoping for, that we were going to get from this type of a Star Wars show. It delivered on a lot of the promises that we had been giving ever since this show was announced that it was going to be a thing. They told us we were going to get good action scenes. They told us we were going to get a lot of cool visuals and stuff like that. This episode definitely did not disappoint. It definitely lived up to some of those expectations. I absolutely loved it. Zane, I haven't really got a chance to talk to you about it. I do know you said that it was significantly better than a lot of the episodes we've gotten in the past, which I don't know if anybody's going to disagree with you on that one, especially not me, because I thoroughly have enjoyed the whole show, but this episode definitely elevated it to another level. What were your overall thoughts of the entire episode?
Mm. Now, I do think this was definitely the best episode, um, by a wide margin.
Yeah.
My thoughts on the episode was this is the best lightsaber fighting we've gotten from Disney. Um, I thought it was very, very good. And I've heard a lot of people complaining about the fighting, and there's some. I mean, it's not, in my opinion, it's not top three fight scenes. Um, for me, I did really enjoy it,
Hmm.
but I still do think the prequels do it better. And one of the reasons I think they do it better, um, is there's more stakes. Now I will say this episode did a Sith versus a bunch of Jedi significantly better than Palpatine versus the Jedis that came to arrest him.
Hmm.
Um, this is significantly better than that. And but I still think there was some room for improvement, and one of those things is it did seem very choppy. It seemed like they were filming in very small locations, very one at a time fights, and I know he took on two or three occasionally. That was really, you know, his power was on display. It was really
Hmm.
good, and
Yeah.
no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But it did seem small to me. And when you're fighting seven Jedi at once, I mean, there needs like it just seems weird for some to kind of take a side seat during some of those portions. It seemed like, hey, like why are they not in the fight? I think of Soul when he was sitting on the ground as I just lost his name in mind, but
Yord,
Yord.
maybe? Yeah.
Yes, when Yord came back with the helmet to fight, and that was a great moment. Great moment when he came back to fight. Knocked out his lightsaber with the Cortisis helmet, which we'll talk about that in a second. Um, and allowed that to disable his lightsaber, and then he broke Yord's neck. That fight was a little too long for our Master Soul to not do a thing.
Hmm.
He was just sitting there waiting, and that to me, some of those moments, it's like, okay, like in the prequels, if Obi-Wan wasn't in the fight, it's because he was under rubble. Like there was a reason that he wasn't in the fight. It wasn't like he was like shown sitting down waiting to attack and then somebody else attacked. So I do think there was some lacking on the storytelling, but I just think it's bad writing. Um and we'll touch on. I'm gonna take a little break and let you urge your thoughts, because I know you have probably conflicting. You may think this is better than prequels fighting. What's your take on it?
So I think there's obviously some prequels fights that are definitely better. I don't think it's even close to the level of Anakin versus Obi-Wan. I think that fight is just still so far ahead of every other Star Wars fight we have ever gotten. I think it's really going to be hard to match just because the stakes of that fight I don't think are possible to match in the universe of Star Wars. I mean, that is the pivotal point of all of Star Wars. I do, however, think that they did a very good job of making it on par with some of those fights. I know they said when they started making this show, they said they wanted to make a fight that was on par with Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul. I think they set out to do that, and I actually think they did a very good job. Now, I don't necessarily want to say it's better, because the Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan fight is very good, but I do think at parts it is better. I think when Obi-Wan is fighting Darth Maul by himself at the very end after Qui-Gon has been killed, I don't think it's better than that part of the fight. But, I rewatched that Qui-Gon fight, and there are a lot of moments where you can tell that Qui-Gon or Obi-Wan are moving a little slower to give Darth Maul that chance to get back into the frame to fight, which obviously they're going to have to do some of those things, but it is evident that they had to do that to make it work. I feel like when you do see Kamir fighting multiple Jedi at a time, I think they did a very good job of kind of just letting it happen, and you don't feel like they're waiting for them to strike. I feel like they're literally kind of going back and forth, and it was really fun to watch. I do like that we actually saw quite a few Jedi die, which it's weird saying that because obviously you like some of these characters, but the way that they did die, I thought was very good. We see in particular, I think one of the people most are upset about dying was Jecki. I think she was a great character. She was one of the highlights of the show, in my opinion. She could have worked on her acting a little bit and stuff like that, but overall, her character was fun and inviting to the story. I do like how she went out. I thought it was very cool that I think they heard some of our complaints with the Ahsoka show about how Sabine was able to take a lightsaber stab to the chest. Well, guess what? With Jackie, they went ahead and put 3 to make sure and just kind of solidify that hey, she's not coming back. Now I could be wrong, and they could be pulling the sheets over my head, but I do think this is actually a very good way for them to have done this fight. So I absolutely loved it. I think they really did a good job of making it on par with some of the prequel fights. Again, I'm not saying it's necessarily better, but it is definitely up there in my opinion. Talking about some of the things that you didn't like, such as the soul stuff, I think there's a little bit more to that and more reasons as to why he wasn't involved in the fighting. I think we kind of see him and Kamir, they're back and forth a little bit. I think they know each other. I think that they're setting up for some storyline to be revealed, and we kind of keep hearing that as Kamir is hinting at it, like, hey, are you going to tell them what you did, or are you going to tell them what you've done, and all that stuff. I think we're getting to that point, and I know I've heard a lot of people say, well, maybe Soul is the master, maybe he's the one pulling the strings on the Sith side of things, or that's something I'm sure you might want to talk about a little bit is he a Sith? Because he did use the word. I personally think they did a very good job again of explaining that I don't think he's even a Sith. I think he used the wording perfectly to say, the Jedi might call me a Sith, but he's not necessarily that. And I think they're setting up some really fun story points there, which I'm excited to see how they go. But overall, I think the soul stuff has some deeper meaning to it. And I think that's something that we're going to get to explore more in these future episodes. We have one coming up tomorrow. I do know that we still have a flashback or two that we're due to get, as there was a scene where we do see Kelnaka with his lightsaber fighting, which is something we didn't get to see. So obviously that should still be coming up. And a lot of people were complaining about how we didn't get to see that. I think they might have used that budget on a different fight. So I'm excited to see if that actually comes to fruition. Overall, I think they did some really good things with this episode. It was really fun to watch. You hinted on the cortosis. I think that is super cool. Again, I think they are using Legends material in the exact way that it needs to be used. Go into it, read some about it, figure out what things you want to incorporate and what things you don't, and go from there. I think that's exactly how the Legends material needs to be handled, and they've done a really good job so far with that. Like I said, I thought the Kiade-Munde stuff was a little bit teetering the line, but again, we don't know when he was actually born. That was all Legends material, so he very well could have been born during this time. Maybe he's a lot older in episode 3 than we thought he was, which I don't mind that at all. It doesn't bother me at all, because again, I still
Yeah.
don't feel like they've broken canon at all. So
I
overall,
will
those are
say
my
the
my
Kiadi
thoughts.
Mundi. I think the Kiadi Mundi stuff that most people are upset with that are reasonable is the fact that he said a Sith hasn't been seen for millennia, not the
Yes.
fact that the date was wrong. I
Yeah.
don't think really anyone cares about the date. I know there are people out there that are very upset about the date, and they're idiots. Let's just get that out there. That's
Yeah, that they're
stupid.
that upset over a date.
Yes, like okay, get over yourselves. It was not canon, but the fact that he said in the movie they picked the person who said a Sith has not been seen for a millennia to do a silly cameo that really could have been anyone. I think that's really what was the big issue.
Well, and I think that's a perfect segue to get into the whole is Chimera Sith? And there's been a lot of fun rumors going around, a lot of conspiracies, and a lot of theories going on. I'm excited to talk about that a little bit because the storylines I'm hearing, the things they could be doing, such as making him the originator of the Knights of Ren, which is something that we do touch on in the sequel movies. I think that's a really, really cool storyline that we could be going with here. I don't know if you've heard any of those theories or anything like that, but what do you think about the idea of something like that?
Yeah, I think I actually sent you the comic panel
Okay, maybe yeah.
where the original Ren was in the exact garb that they had Kamir in,
Yes.
a cortosis armband, and then the helmet, shirtless. It definitely looked exactly like how they had him in the show. So whether they're going to make him the original knight or if they are just drawing from inspiration, either way, I think that was a really good play. I really loved the look. I did love the incorporation of cortosis. What that material is, some people who were lesser in Star Wars, like myself, saw a lightsaber short out and said, "This is stupid. Why are lightsabers shorting out?" So I had to do some research. I had a good friend of the show reach out and say, "Hey, what'd you think of the episode? And I said it was pretty good, except for the stupid flimsy lightsabers that kept breaking. And then he actually sent back the Legends link. So big shout out to Peyton for hooking me up with that information. He's actually going to be on the show for the finale, so I'm excited for him to bring his knowledge because he kind of knew it off the rip. That was cortosis, and what cortosis does is it absorbs energy and redirects it, so it can take a direct blaster shot. However, it's really hard to mold
Hmm.
and forge with, so that's why a lot of it's not used for mass production, kind of like Valspar is. It is much harder to make material, much harder to make armor with, and that's why it's so rare. So that was really a good point, like you said, exactly how they should use Legends material.
Yeah, I really like that. I think it's super cool. Again, touching on the Knights of Ren thing, I think overall Star Wars is understanding that they, or I should say Disney, is really understanding that they did make some mistakes with the sequels by not really giving us backstory and then just throwing us into some of these worlds. And that's why I really do appreciate with what they've done with some of these shows. Now, I know you didn't really like in the Bad Batch that we are kind of getting to see how the Emperor was able to survive and all those things and how he was able to return in the sequels. And I agree with you on some of those extents that, we do need to move on a little bit. We need to get away from the Skywalker stuff and start moving on to some of these other worlds like we saw in Ahsoka, which is something that we're super excited about. However, if they are going to continue to make stuff in this light, I don't necessarily mind that they're taking this opportunity to give us more backstory and to try to strengthen those sequel movies. I do think it's unfortunate that that's what they're having to do, and we're getting kind of, I hesitate to use the word material wasted when we could be getting other new stories that we've never seen before. But it definitely doesn't bother me that they're trying to give some more backstory to some of these things that we got in the sequel. So I'm super excited about some of the paths that they're going with and some of the things that they're opening up because I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do want to circle back a little bit to the soul things.
Okay.
I really like all the potential of the Knights of Ren. I hope that's what they're going with. And I think it does hint towards that a lot. But I think the soul thing, anything they do cannot fix what was done in this episode with him. And that personally, just waiting to fight, defeating Kamir, having him on his knees, he should have killed him. He should have killed him. The like it would have been the right thing to do. Especially when you try to let bugs kill him. What is the point? Like either arrest him fully right then and there and take him back or kill him. Do not try to make a loophole and get bugs to kill him. That's
Mhm.
insanity. Like that is a brilliant picture of how terrible this writing has been. Um I just of everything they've done in the show, like that's one of the stupidest moments. You just had this guy kill over what was it, 7 Jedi? Did you
I
just kill
guess at
seven
that point
Jedi?
it would have been six because Soul was the last one standing. I think there were
Okay,
seven,
so
including Soul, so
killed
six.
6 Jedi. This man literally just defeated him in combat, and he could have just ended him instead of putting him on his knees. First off, like he didn't need to stop. You just end like in a fight there. You don't have the guy who just killed 6 of your closest friends and companions on his knees. No, you just end it. Like it's done. It's a fight. He chose his course. That's how that should have ended. Um, and then to put the light on his back, what a stupid moment. Really, really terrible. And have the bugs carry him off. Clearly, he's gonna live. Soul knows this. So either he's evil, and it's still terrible writing because why is he still here this whole time? It doesn't make any sense. Or it's just they don't know how to write a good character, and that's what I think it is. I think they don't know how to write a good character.
So I'll agree. I think the bug thing has probably been honestly my biggest gripe of the entire show. I did feel like that was a really stupid moment. And they tried to throw in there that little part where Osha says goodbye to her little droid as if we're supposed to really care about that droid. I feel like they were really trying to get the BB-8 stuff. That was one of the saving things of the sequels. Those people really liked BB-8. He had some character. He made people laugh. This droid has not done that ever. So the fact that they were trying to get us to feel emotions for that, I thought was also stupid. As she tells the droid bye and that she loves it and whatever. I thought that was a dumb part as well. Yeah, the bug scene really bothered me. I think the soul stuff. I agree that some of it was annoying. I think though they've done a really big part of the show has been Soul being, I guess the word you would use is sentimental towards his Padawans. We see how he is, looking at that hologram of Osha early on in the show, and it's actually Jackie that's like, "Why are you looking at that? We're not supposed to form attachments." And he plays it off as if he's using it as like a, just a learning experience. I kind of wouldn't be surprised if we get to the point, because they've also used the term rogue Jedi quite a bit in this show, that I wonder if Kamir was at one point maybe a Padawan or something like that of Souls, and that's why he's having such a hard time, dealing that finishing blow to him, is because he either is the bad person or he has this sentimental attachment to one of his former Padawans. The only thing that makes that a little difficult is because he's seen Kamir before, so I guess depending on if they give us a flashback, maybe Kamir looked a lot different, maybe just age has made him look a little different, because you even also hear him use that he wears the helmet so you can't get into his mind, which I thought that was another really cool little piece that they gave us. So I think that Soul stuff, again, I get your sentiments for that. Like, this is not one of those things I'm going to say I super disagree with you on, as I've said a lot in the past on this show, because I do understand some of those complaints, but I do think they are going to give us a reason for it. Now, whether that reason is good or not, we'll have to wait and see, because there have been some reasonings in the show that aren't very good. But I've been continuing to give the show the benefit of the doubt, and I think it's been, played in my favor that I've been letting it played out, because I think we've gotten some really cool stuff, and the story is getting a little bit better, episode by episode. So again, I'm going to continue
Is
to
the
let it
story
play
getting
out.
better?
I
Did
personally
this
think it is.
did the story get better this episode?
I personally think it did, because it opens up some more questions that we had. And I feel like we were kind of running out of questions to be, asked, because we had been given so many answers. I feel like
Okay,
this
so
one opened up a lot more.
what are the new questions for you?
So the new questions for me is, obviously Soul has done something pretty bad, which we kind of known already. That we might have thought, though, that he was the one good Jedi of the ones that May had been trying to kill. So apparently it's getting to the point where we don't think that's the fact anymore. So I'm excited to see that storyline. I think the other storyline is, I believe Osha is probably the one to be more scared of in this scenario now than May. I do think May has, even though we both agree that her change of heart was kind of forced and kind of bad, I do think she has gotten to the point, though, where she's come to terms with things. I think Osha is the one that's going to be in for a rude awakening. You know, what has Soul lied to her about? What are the things that, she is going to figure out about her former master and about the life that she has lived up to this point? I'm excited to see where that storyline goes, because I think that is the main driving point of the story now. Again, I do think Osha now, at this point in time, is going to be the acolyte that the show is named off of. I think we're going to see a little bit of a switch between her and May. And again, I don't necessarily like that. I do think that's where they're going with this, though. I think that is bad storytelling, that we're just going to see this complete 180 from both characters. But I do think that's where they're going. So I'm interested to see if that's how they do it and how they do it.
Yeah, I don't think those are new questions. I don't think it progressed the story like much at all. I don't think this gave us any better storytelling. We both predicted that Quamir was the stranger. We thought that was the case, and I think that's been the best part of the show. Is
Yeah, they didn't try to trick us.
his entire character, his 100% his entire character has been the best part of the show. I
Yeah.
think we all knew Soul did something terrible. Like, we knew those four Jedi have done something bad, and the reason that he hasn't been to open with May is really, or with Osha, is really one of the biggest character flaws that he has. Definitely the sentimental thing. I don't think Kamir is a Padawan. I don't think that that's the case, personally, but he could be. I could be wrong. But that's just, I don't think it opened up a bunch of questions necessarily for me that I actually don't have any more questions. The only question I have is, why in the world did May cut her hair like that? Like,
See, I've seen a lot of people complain about that. Like, we don't use lightsabers are being used wrong. I think that's just funny, because that's actually how Padawans become knighted as Jedi Knights, is they use a lightsaber to cut their Padawan. I forget what the term that they use for their little
your
Padawan
ponytail,
hair,
their
their
rectangle.
ponytail. Yeah, that's actually what Jedi do to, turn someone into a knight. So I actually thought that was kind of cool. I've seen a lot of people complaining about, oh, it's so
Oh,
stupid to use a lightsaber.
I
I'm
don't
not
think the
saying you said that.
lightsaber itself was. I don't think using the lightsaber was stupid. I think the way in which she did it was stupid. with the hair,
The hair
the
flick.
head, the head flip in the opposite way or in the same way that the lightsaber was moving. Um, I just it was supposed to look cool, and it was one of the stupidest looking things I've seen in Star Wars. And that's not me hating. That's just facts. Like that just looks stupid. Like it would
Yeah,
have looked better for her to in tears, upset that she's been tricked, that she needs to go the other way, cutting them off one by one, like with some emotion instead of this stoic character who now leans over, flips her hair backwards, and throws a lightsaber forward and has a perfect cut like her sister. It just, I don't, dude, I just,
yeah. I think the logistics of it are not something we should be trying to figure out because it does that part of it doesn't make any sense. It literally was a perfect cut. I guess maybe she used the force to measure
and, and
the length
I
of the
don't
hair.
care that it's a perfect cut. Like, I don't care that, like, it looks stupid. Like they thought like how many
Oh,
people
someone
looked
thought
at
that was a
that?
good move.
Dude, a lot of people looked at that and they were like, dude, this is going to be epic. Like look at this epic stance. And I mean, I just like, oh,
It
y'all
wasn't for
missed
you.
it. Nah, not cool. So I personally, for me, I think like just for the episode, it was fine. Like I was happy to see some cool lightsaber battles, but again, I thought they were compressed. I thought it was like pocket fights. It was very compartmentalized. In this, 1v7, it was not a 1v7. It was, we got Osha and May as well that are in there within the fight. Um so it seemed to me like it was compartmentalized. It wasn't a good flow to why fight to fight went the way it went. I thought the best part was Yord and Osha running off and then them coming back. I don't love the reason that Osha came back. I think that she should have left. I think that would have been best for everyone. I don't think anyone could argue with that because of how it ended. But you make the decisions based on the decision, not on the results. But like I thought Yord coming back in that fight was great. But again, like Master Soul should have been there to fight with Yord. Um, in that moment, and then he should have killed him. So I do like it. It was a step up, but this fight for me did not raise this at all because the story is still at what it is.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I'm still really enjoying it. I do think the fight made the show a lot better for me personally, which I already enjoyed the show. So just getting that the fight was kind of like the icing on the top for me. It was so fun to watch. We've already talked about the Cortosis. We've talked about the Knights of Ren storylines we might be getting. I think they did a lot of cool stuff in this episode. It made it a lot of fun. And I'm definitely very excited to see where we go from here. Now, we have talked a little bit about, we were happy that this episode didn't go back into a flashback. They were able to keep the momentum that they did gain in the previous episode. Where do you think we go from here? Do you think we do hop back into a flashback now, or do we, maybe see if Soul figures out that it's May on the ship with him? I feel like that should be something that's pretty easy to figure out for him, is if he sees the scar on her forehead or, the witch marking. But again, they didn't know. People talk about all the time that Jedi are usually oblivious to the Sith. I mean, we see that all through the prequels. And we're kind of seeing it now, as the Jedi being too arrogant to realize that there's a real threat on their hands, whether that be a Sith or a Knight of Ren or something like that. Where do you think we go from there?
Dude, give me some more Night Sister witches. I think we're going back in time. I think we're definitely getting some more witches. We're getting another flashback. Personally, that's where I think this next episode goes, and then that'll be episode 6, and then 7 and 8 can be the conclusion, with Osha turning to the dark side, and them becoming, you know, turns out that Osha is in fact Plagueis. She
Oh, you
turns
think?
into Plagueis. I'm just kidding.
I was about to say that is a wild.
I wouldn't put it past this show, bro.
Right, right.
But yes, I do think we're going back to see more space witches, in time, and then that will set up the potential character. Uh, I think Soul is going to tell her what's going on, what he did, which turns him. Wait, no, Soul is with May, with Osha
Yes,
now, with May, and Osha is with the Master. Well, the
yes.
Master will tell her what. Soul did, and she'll be like, ah. But I think that telling will be done through a flashback. Um,
Okay.
and then the finale will be those two now against Soul.
So I think those are some very good possibilities. I don't know that we'll necessarily. I don't know if we'll spend a whole episode in a flashback. Hopefully not. I hope if we do get a flashback, it's more so maybe 25%, 50% of an episode. I hope we don't get another full episode of it. But with the way this show has gone, I wouldn't be surprised if we do. Um, I'm interested to see. I know another question I have for you is I think we've both come to terms that we don't think Kamir is the Sith Lord here. I don't. We don't even think he's necessarily a Sith. Um, do you think that we do get some sort of reveal at this point about maybe there actually being a Sith Lord or something like that, or do you think they really do run with this Knight of Ren storyline and stuff like that? And there never were Sith, and maybe that was their fix for the Kiade Mundi stuff being in there.
Yeah, I would say that's probably how they go. I don't think they're bold enough to play with Dark Plagueis. Um, so I don't think that's going to be who they introduce, because if they do introduce a Sith, that's who it needs to be.
Yeah.
Um, and if they're gonna go Knights of Ren, they should just go Knights of Ren. And then they can pull the card. Well, it wasn't a Sith, so we didn't break anything.
Yeah.
So I think that's the way it needs to go. Personally, I will say Mother Anastasia has been credited with 4 episodes.
Okay, so we
So
definitely
I
are going to
would
see her a couple more times.
definitely want to see her a few more times, which is fine. Um, we've come to expect that, right?
Yes.
But yes, so I think they're gonna stick with not being a Sith, or I guess going to switch to it not being a Sith. Um, him coming out and saying he is the Knight of Ren, and maybe recruiting both Osha and May, and maybe that's the start of his Knights
Okay.
core. But I don't know. That's personally how I think it's going to go. I think they're going to kill Soul.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Soul is probably the next one up on the chopping block. But I'm nonetheless I'm interested to see how it plays out. I kind of am in the same light as you. I don't necessarily think we'll see a Sith Lord at this point. If we do, I think it'll be like a very last scene of the show, almost like an in credits scene. And maybe that'll be hinting at another project that we might get. Maybe something along those lines. But again, it's tricky when we're talking about this era of Star Wars and the Sith and stuff like that, because you do got to be careful with what you say and what you don't. As we've already seen the uproar that they have caused just by having Kiade Mundi be in the episode. So it's going to be interesting to see how they go. I think we can both agree that we're more excited for it. I've been excited for it, but I would assume you are a little more excited for it than you were previously. I think you did enjoy this episode more so than any other episode. I think you even mentioned that. So I think we're in for, maybe a little bit better storytelling, hopefully at least, because I know that's been your biggest complaint is just not really enjoying the story that they're telling. So hopefully that can change a little bit for you. But overall, are you still keeping, I think you were earlier on in the season at a 6 in the ranking for the show. Are you still at a 6? Or do you think maybe you gained a half a point somewhere or maybe even lost a point?
Oh, we definitely lost a point with episode 3 and 4. I think we're probably around a 4.5, 5 right
Oh,
now.
okay.
Um, we're right around there. I've been very disappointed with the show. Um, but I am still gonna watch tomorrow.
Yeah, you got to give it. I think at this point, if you watch this far, you got to see it through. I'm still going to stay with my 7 rating. I've still thoroughly enjoyed it. I've had a lot of fun. So I'm excited to see where they go. But guys, I think as far as this week's episode goes, I think that's about all we have for you. Again, we're trying to keep it a little bit short. Zane's a little under the weather, but again, for very good reasons. So we're super happy about that. Again, though, if you guys do have any questions or anything like that, make sure to always reach out to us on the social medias on X and Instagram. We've been having a lot of fun on those platforms. It's always cool to have more engagement. So the more questions you guys ask us, the more fun we get to have as well. So make sure you guys are always reaching out to us on those platforms. But Zane, do you have any other things you wanted to discuss before this episode comes to a close?
I think that's a great end to the episode, guys. Thanks for sticking around with us. Sorry, we will be back in full health. We're making a prediction, a little bit of clairvoyance here that next Monday, we'll be better and we'll be back and ready for action. My voice won't sound like this. So, thank you guys for sticking out with us, and I hope you catch us in the next one.